Just introduced the topic of today, which is always great to say again. I see now more and more people joining. So we're going to have a talk about the Pantarei approach and touch in connection with personal growth. So the Pantarei approach supports personal growth and transformation and helps people tap into their unique qualities, to their resources that they can then get hold of whenever they need to in their everyday. And it has a very particular aspect, which is the use of touch. So I'd love for maybe Velle to get us started on why touch and why in combination, why does the Pantarei approach have this element in it that's so important?
So first of all, I almost can say, like, how can we do it without touch? That would be my first answer. I feel as we are living today in such a conceptual world, and there is so much that we understand, so much knowledge that we gain from everywhere, but there is the aspect of our own experience, of our own body, of our own connection that has nothing to do with all of this noise outside. And touch, for me and for us, is a way to communicate directly with the person. It's not with their ideas, it's not with how we would like life to be, it's not with any kind of conceptual, intellectual part, which I definitely value and like very much. But as soon as touch is being involved, we immediately create the direct connection to the person, direct connection even between the person to themselves, and of course also between us as practitioners to our clients.
For sure, I think that was nicely described, because it's one thing having ideas and theory about something, and I think I know from clients, and I guess from your classes, it's often our challenges and our difficulties, or who we are, and things about ourselves. We kind of know, we have it quite clear. The challenge is then to, what do we do about this? How can we? Okay, I respond to a certain situation with a lot of stress. I know this, and now what? So that brings it in nicely to change the theory into something physical.
Yeah, I would just say shortly, I'll give you to continue, but I would just say shortly, even with this kind of stress, it's not even what's now, it's about at all realizing the stress, let's say, or the tension, and sometimes realize if this tension needs now to be released, or maybe it needs to stay there. And when we connect to the body, we are able to really realize, okay, what do I want next? So just before the next question, I just want to clarify that when we connect to the body, it's also, I think, easier to explore without clear answers of this is what I need to do next.
And how would that look in a session? Because you run the Pantarei School, which is a professional training program for people who want to become practitioners of the approach. So actually work with clients through a combination of dialogue and touch. How does that look in a session when you have a practitioner and a client that comes to them?
So when a client comes to us in a session, we want to approach them as a whole on all levels and aspects. Often it starts with verbal communication and listening to the client on that level, because just like you said before, often we know what bothers us, or maybe even from where it comes, or we might even have an idea of how to change that. So we value this part definitely. But after getting to know our client and what they come with by verbally conversing and communicating, we add to that part also what we call communication through touch, where I invite the client to lie on the table, and just like I would ask before, if I make it very simple, how are you? I would then place my hands on their body and ask them through their hands, how are you? Or they described me before, let's go with stress, I'm stressed. So can I really feel that also in their bodies? And how is it for the person to become a tangible experience and away from only knowledge? And then I can ask through the touch also, okay, what do you need in order to change that? Or why is it there? And just add more aspects to who we are and how we can respond by having touch as a direct communicator that, yes, connects us on different levels. I would say more than, not to dismiss the mind, but more than just our ability to think or to acknowledge, but going into a direction of experiences. So a client comes to us and they can always expect that we would listen to them on all and on who they are, on all aspects, verbally and with our ears, with our own body sensations, and definitely through our hands and what their body has to converse or their being has to converse there.
And is there a particular ratio of this much touch and this much talk, or this much combination of touch and talk, or is it how would you how can we understand a session?
Like I would say for the people that were never in any session, you should expect that the touch, like we have a part of communication, verbal communication, and then we have a part of verbal communication while we are touching. It's a continuation of the conversation. So the hands-on part of any session is, just like we said before, is continuing the conversation. It's not a separate part of the session. And how much of the session would be involved touch and how much of it would involve only verbal communication, almost like anything in the Pantarei approach, it will be unique. It will be individual. It will be according to the clients, according to the practitioner, and according to the moment in time. Like Pantarei stands for everything flows. Pantarei stands for the man never goes to the river twice, as it's not the same man, not the same river. Every moment is different, and therefore we cannot really say in advance. But no matter what we do, there is an element of touch in sessions, or when we give sometimes online sessions, it can still be an element of connecting to the physical experience, to the experience per se, to the sensation of what actually I'm expressing through my own body.
I was just going to ask about this COVID time and this phenomenal ability for the Pantarei approach, because it adapts itself to the uniqueness of the client, of the relationship between the practitioner and the client, and of the circumstances, that it's allowed this very hands-on modality, even over this time, to transition into a possibility for online sessions that still includes, as you say, that connection to the body and the physicality.
Yes, but even though there is that part that we can in online sessions address, you can say, through the screen, because we have this amazing ability as human beings, I think, to feel, no matter if we are in the same space or not. I think in the beginning of COVID and when everything transformed to online, it was kind of a surprise how physical and powerful sessions also in an online format can be. But there is an aspect of direct hands-on to a person that cannot be filled out in that format. And it's just a pity that, or a tragedy, however we want to say it, that in times of COVID, we in any way lacked before, maybe even the power of touch in order to center ourselves, in order to communicate in the way that we are communicating, but also to know where we are. Like, our sense of touch is so needed in order to learn, to grow. And then comes that virus that teaches us that it is actually dangerous to be too close to somebody, that doesn't what we normally need in order to heal and to develop or to grow is now becoming a danger, and we need even to withdraw. And maybe the last months, at least here in Germany, felt like finally we are back to normal and there are no masks, and the distance becomes less and we can hug a person when we meet them. It's still so much needed to reclaim that space back. That touch is a very powerful, I would say, needed. It's not an instrument, but needed for us to grow, to heal, to connect, to be there. And we all, in a way, need to fill out our depleted tanks for missing it over that amount of time. And only for that matter, I can recommend warmly to go to sessions for a practitioner. But on top of that, of course, there is much more to expect when going for a session with a practitioner.
For sure. And to ask back about the studies and how you actually teach touch, does it come from certain techniques, or how do you, because it is a very intuitive and very individual happenings when you're in a session with someone. How do you go about teaching this?
So I many times find myself describing it like learning a language, and even that is not completely correct, because it's a language that we actually have in us. It's reclaiming back a language that we all have. So in the way I see it, we all know how to touch. It comes with our growing up as human beings. We often learn how not to touch. We learn how to withdraw from that because it was not polite. It's not how we should approach other people. And in our studies, we first of all want people to really claim back the freedom of touch, the sensations in their hands. And then, of course, we teach them techniques. We can call them techniques, but each technique is, in a way, it's a sentence. It's a way of how I can relate to the body of my clients. But I would always touch according to my clients, which means there is not one back that is like another back. And it doesn't matter if I touched in my life thousands of backs. I would like to connect to that person, to the physicality of the person, and also to the emotional level, to what is happening right now. So to come back to your questions, how do we teach about touch? We show different ways of how we can use our hands. We show different ways of how we can use all of our body. But I think that way more we really show how you can connect to your clients, and how much it's the clients that actually shows you how to touch. It's when you touch in a way to encourage communication. It means that it's just like we go and we will talk about, we are talking right now about touch. If it will not be with you and with Claudia, the conversation will be different. I can have many conversations about touch, and each person and each moment in time would lead the conversation to a different direction. And we would like touch to be the same. We would like touch to be truly connected to the moment, truly connected to the person, to their goals, to what they would like to achieve, and how we can achieve that together. So there is learning, but there is a lot of listening and a lot of let's do that together with our clients.
So it's very intuitive and learning how to communicate, connect, and then bring that hands-on element in.
I would say intuitive, but also truly listening to the clients, because if whoever listened to us and never was never in a session or never learned with us, I don't want you to have the idea that it just intuitively I'm touching however I want. I have my goals, I have my ways. I'm looking at my clients and I'm learning together with my clients how to touch them. So it has a lot, it has many options. Touch can be strong, touch can be soft, touch can be on one spot, touch can be on the entire body. Every session, if I have a full day of sessions with clients, every session I'll touch in a different way. Some very active, some more passive. It's always should be according to the person, and we would teach, or we are teaching our practitioners to listen to that voice and to listen to what the body of our clients actually tells us.
And like you mentioned, it has clear defined goals that your client comes with, and the wishes that they have for that session or for a process over more than one session, and follows what the client, in a sense, leading where they want to go as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is sometimes very hard to as if grasp again, especially when we have students who are already coming from fields maybe that work with the body, and you use touch as a technique, and then you would approach a person, they're stressed, how can I relax you? And there are certain points I can press. So it's very as if solution orientated. And the way how we teach it and look at it is actually then to ask again the client or their body through the touch, can you feel at all that you are stressed? And then I don't know the right point to press. I will need to feel what you need in order to get to know more how you are, and then asking back through my hands also, what do you need in order here to let go? Or even show that, yes, with my touch, look, there is this option by applying this amount of pressure. But it starts from a communication point where I'm not addressing the client like that I come and I will now know how to touch. It's much more I'm coming, and first of all I need to feel you, I need to get a sense of you, I need to see again what you need, and then we lead. It sounds a bit of a contradiction that yes, you just follow the client and you hold an aim, but we are knowing, I think, best often what we need in our lives. We just forget how to access that. And also here then, beyond the understanding, touch would so much serve to access knowledge within the person to answer that question again. And then I need to be a facilitator for great communication, not for that the answers and questions can be found, and not so much for, I need now to know where to go or what to show you or where to press, in that sense.
And like you said before, it's not linear of a client comes, we can use this example again, I think it's very relevant, of stress, comes feeling stressed, okay, this is the problem, we find the solution by touching in this way, pressing these points, ticking off these boxes, and this person will be the same as the next client. It's very individual and an exploration of each person. And maybe they're, even what you had said even before, maybe this is not the time to let go and relax. Maybe they're in a situation of their lives where they actually need that force and all the energy they can have to channel into a particular direction. And now is not the moment that they can let go. If they let go, there will be a disaster, which we don't want to help them create. Do you have any such examples, maybe something that you've had with a client of yours recently?
Like I just want to, before we are going into example, just to remind maybe or to say to the people that maybe don't never were in sessions or something like that, like the Pantarei approach is really not seeking for solutions. This is not what we are doing. When a person comes and say, I feel stressed, of course the automatic thought is we need to find relaxation, and that for me is a whole language of a problem and a solution. And actually touch allows us, I think Claudia said it really beautifully before, it allows me to ask my clients what's going on, like tell me, I want to listen, what's going on. And maybe the body of the client would say, yes, I'm carrying so much right now, and I'm not even saying a disaster would happen if you would let go. I would just say, wow, that's amazing, you're really carrying so much. Right now, that's what we need to acknowledge. Right now, that's what we need to give respect to. Right now, we are not at all trying to relax you. Of course, at the end of the session, I hope the muscles would feel more relaxed, but it's almost like a side, how do you say it?
Side effect.
A side effect. It's not what I am trying to do. And my measurement of success or no success in a session would not be by how much of the tension was released. And sometimes it would really be by the person realizing, oh, wow, I'm really carrying a lot. Wow, those shoulders right now take care and are so responsible, and I maybe cannot yet release the tension. So it's not, I don't have to look at my stress and at my tension as a problem, and therefore we don't need now to solve it. So maybe it's a bit of a mini example, because you ask about examples, but if I have a client like that, I might touch them and I'll ask them questions about, wow, I really feel all of that strength in your shoulders. And they would tell me, yes, I am right now doing that. And I take care of all of this list of tasks in my life. And this is what we would explore. We would find how they can carry it in a better way. Not necessarily in a relaxed way, but in a better way for them. We would find out how they can listen to what they are doing, how they can acknowledge that and take pride in how they manage in their life. And only from there we can really address other things that they might relate to as problematic, but not necessarily me as a practitioner.
Beautifully said. It begs me to pause a little, because it's a lot that has been transmitted there, from what the Pantarei approach is about, to how a session would look, to how it is to use touch in communication.
And I don't know if Claudia wants to give another example or a client of something has to do with touch, but yeah, that's just kind of a general idea that I would want to make sure that we express together with a little bit of an example.
Yeah, I don't have the reverse client example coming to my mind right now, that the client would say, I'm like that, and this is also what stayed there. I think it's much more there is a part of acknowledgement. And again, I would say here in a session, for a person to experience how they are holding, what they are holding, to really take pride in that, or sometimes it is acknowledgement, it will already change the whole situation, how they feel about it, how they look about it. And it doesn't become even not anymore so much then, okay, this needs to be fixed, but much more in, okay, do you want that? How can we maybe change that? Let's explore other options. You might, carry on, but maybe we figure out carry on options that are less strenuous for your shoulders in what you need to hold. And then it would always lead back to the person, their resources, I would say, their strengths, who they are, and not telling them so much what not to do, but exploring together, how can I do what I do and be well with it, or find my unique ways with it as a person.
So definitely, as you've mentioned before, not starting with the problem and having the client see their problem as the main focus of what's happening in their lives, but rather see, okay, what's going on beyond what's in that? What does that represent? Where is it coming from? What does that signify who I am and how I've been managing sometimes for many years with the difficulty, or with something that's inside that they want to release or change or redirect.
Yes. And maybe only as an addition, it's a bit of a different direction, but I also want to mention that sometimes when we are touching our clients, we enrich our perception of them. Not sometimes, actually all the time. There is a way that we know each other when we communicate, when we verbally exchange whatever conversation. And then when I add hands-on, I have an additional knowledge. So let's say I had a very intense conversation with my clients verbally. We talked about a lot of things, and it sounded as if everything is a lot, there are a lot of ideas and concepts. And then I'll move to the parts of touch, and I would notice that client, that person is capable of creating such silence and such softness and such a new way of perception that I wouldn't know if I would only have the conversation. It's as if we have a completely different or an additional information that comes to us as practitioners in a very beautiful, very direct, and I would also say very simple. Like touch is simple. There is something in it. When it's painful, it's painful. When it's relaxing, it's relaxing. When there is flow, there is flow. When I feel from head to toes, that's how I am. And it gives a sensation, which we also didn't mention before. It gives a very clear experience, which means that a person that comes to a session goes out of the session and their body was touched. There is something that truly changed, not only ideas in their mind, again, with all of how change of ideas in the minds is so relevant, and it's of course impact our body, but also the opposite, the change from our body impact our ideas in the mind. And I think that's flow, that movement is really, worthwhile experiencing if you haven't been already in a session.
Definitely go for it. Yeah, and on our PantareiApproach.com website, we have a practitioner page with the contact details of practitioners around the globe that you can find and reach out to, and many activities coming up in this next half of the month, and in October they'll continue. And the next one, which is a great doorway in, is the Pantarei Flow, which is a session Claudia will be giving next week, Wednesday. We'll have more of it on our Instagram, but Claudia, did you want to say
Very
something?
much looking forward to it, as it is not only dedicated for once to our practitioners and students, but open for anybody who would like to get a little bit their feet wet with the Pantarei and have a taste. It is, of course, also for our students and practitioners, but it's really open for anybody who would like to join and get a taste. It is an online activity, so a relatively safe space to tiptoes or to get a taste of what we are doing, even though by leading certain exercises and probably also inviting the participants to touch themselves, I will implement this power of touch and experience in this 1 hour training that we are going to have in order to connect people more with who they are and getting into their flow with this little Pantarei flow activity.
Beautiful. I can't wait. And then we've got the next Instagram Live about the Pantarei studies, if that is of interest. If there's any curiosity there, that will be on Thursday the 6th. And then, of course, our next intro meeting with Vetted, which is coming up next month. But more on that will be published here on Instagram, on our website as well. If anyone wants more information or is curious, just write to us, send us a message, and we will happily respond. I think that rounds up this whole subject of touch. It's just a taste. We will continue with it, I'm sure, in our next lives. We're running these lives quite regularly, so there will be more on this subject. It is so fundamental to the Pantarei approach, so definitely there's a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely.
Very much.
And with that, I wish everyone a wonderful evening. And we'll
Wonderful
see you soon.
evening, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.